My name is Laverne Ashford. I'm 79 years old, and until last week, my grandchildren thought I was dead. I didn't die. I didn't even come close. But sometimes lies spread faster than truth, especially when those lies come from someone living under your own roof. The first time I heard it, it felt like my heart stopped. She passed away last winter, my daughter-in-law, Celeste, had told a neighbor at the grocery store. I was right there in the next aisle, listening through a crack between the cereal boxes. My hands gripped the cart so hard my knuckles went white. I didn't say a word. Not then. Not when she called me later that night to remind me not to show up at the twins' graduation. Not when I realized my own son must have believed her, or at the very least let her story stand. It's one thing to be unwanted. It's another to be erased. For months I stayed quiet. I told myself there'd be a time to set the record straight, that life would hand me the right moment. I didn't know when it would come, but I knew this much. When it did, they wouldn't be ready for me. That moment came on a warm Friday evening in June, the night of that graduation. I wasn't invited. Celeste made sure of that. But you see, there's a difference between being invited and showing up. The auditorium smelled faintly of floor polish and carnations. Families filled every row. Mothers in floral dresses, fathers with cameras hanging from their necks. I stayed at the back, half hidden in the shadows, clutching the small velvet pouch I'd brought with me. My heart pounded against my ribs as the principal's voice crackled over the microphone, reading names in careful order. And then, there they were. Wyatt and Harper Ashford. My grandchildren. My blood. My babies, now taller than me, walking across that stage in blue and gold robes. They looked out into the crowd, smiling, probably searching for faces they'd been told they'd never see again. They didn't see me at first. But Celeste did. She was seated right in the front row, a silk scarf draped over her shoulders like she owned the place. When her eyes met mine, I saw it, the exact moment the color drained from her face. And in that split second I decided, I wasn't leaving this building until they heard the truth from my own lips. The line of graduates was getting shorter. My window was closing. I stepped forward, my cane tapping against the polished floor. The sound echoed louder than I expected, and heads began to turn. I didn't look at them. My eyes stayed fixed on the stage, on Wyatt and Harper. I was halfway down the aisle when Celeste stood up. She mouthed something to my son, who started rising from his seat. But I didn't stop. Because in less than a minute, I was going to be face to face with my grandchildren for the first time in over a year. And nothing, no lie, no look, no outstretched hand, was going to stop me from telling them I was alive. What happened when I finally reached that stage? Well, let's just say it wasn't the reunion Celeste had prepared them for. The night before my grandson Wyatt was born, I sat in the hospital waiting room in a chair that felt like it had been designed to test your patience. My daughter-in-law, Celeste, was in labor, my son pacing like a metronome, and I remember thinking, this is it. This is where our family truly begins again. I had been alone for years by then. My husband, Gerald, passed from a sudden heart attack at work accident when I was 56. The house was too quiet, and my days were spent with the hum of the refrigerator and the ticking of the kitchen clock. When my son married Celeste, I thought maybe, just maybe, the silence would lift. She was polished, always perfectly dressed, with a smile that could make you forget the way her eyes sized you up. At first she called me Mom like it was natural. She brought me flowers, asked for my pie recipes, even let me hold the baby before she let her own mother. I let myself believe we could be close, that she might fill a little of the empty space Gerald left behind. But the cracks began quietly. Comment here. Suggestion there. Maybe you should start writing things down just in case. I'll take care of the bills for you. They can get confusing at your age." I brushed it off. Maybe she was just trying to help. Then one Sunday she came by unannounced. I was in the middle of pruning my rose bushes. She walked straight into the yard, phone in hand, saying, "Wyatt and Harper can't come this weekend. They've got too much going on. We'll plan for another time." The kids didn't have too much going on. I knew because I'd seen their posts online. Playing basketball, going for ice cream, laughing with friends. My invitations had quietly become inconvenient. It only got worse from there. Celeste started showing up less often, and when she did, she treated me like I was a fragile piece of furniture. "Careful with that knife, Mom. You should probably rest. You look tired." She'd take calls in the other room, whispering. When she left, I could feel the air in the house settle, like it was glad she was gone. The real breaking point came one spring afternoon. I'd been planning to surprise Wyatt and Harper at their school band concert. I stopped by Celeste's house to tell them in person. She opened the door, stepping outside before I could cross the threshold. "They don't want you there," she said plainly. "It's too much for them. Too much confusion." Confusion. That word lodged in my chest. "Celeste, I'm their grandmother," I said, my voice shaking. She just smiled. "Not if they think you're gone." I didn't understand what she meant until months later, when I overheard her in the grocery store aisle telling a friend I had passed away last winter. She said it so casually, like she was commenting on the weather. And that's when I knew. Celeste wasn't trying to help me. She was erasing me. That night, I sat in my kitchen, the old clock ticking in the corner, and I made myself a promise. If she wanted me gone, she was going to have to see my face in the one place she least expected it. Which is exactly why, on the night of the twins' graduation, I was standing at the back of the auditorium, waiting for my moment. Before Celeste ever stepped into our lives, I thought I knew what love from a child looked like. I raised my son, Daniel, alone after his father died in a work accident. He was just 8 when I stood in the hallway of our little ranch house in Milford, Pennsylvania, clutching the folded flag they handed me at the funeral. That was the day I made a promise to myself. Daniel would never have to wonder if he was loved, not for a single second. I worked 2 jobs for years. Day shift at the post office, nights at a diner with the same red vinyl booths since 1954. My hands were always tired, my back always sore, but Daniel had clean clothes, full lunches, and a roof over his head. I went to every baseball game, every school play, every parent-teacher meeting, even when I had to nap in my car between shifts to do it. When Daniel graduated high school and got into Penn State, I sat in the bleachers with tears streaming down my cheeks, clapping until my palms stung. That moment felt like the proof I'd done something right. So when he called me years later to tell me he'd met someone, I prayed she'd be kind. "Her name's Celeste," he said. His voice full of that quick excitement you only hear in new love. "She's smart, Mom. Really put together. You're going to love her." And at first I thought I did. Celeste had a way of making you feel like you were the only one in the room when she spoke to you. She asked me for recipes, brought me little hostess gifts when they came over for Sunday dinner, and even helped me plant tulips along the walkway one spring. When they married, she told me she was lucky to have me as a mother-in-law. When Wyatt was born, I was there in the delivery room. Celeste let me hold him first, so he'd know his Nana. I rocked that baby until my arms ached, humming the same lullabies I used to sing to Daniel. A few years later, little Harper arrived. Wild curls, loud laugh, eyes like mine. Those 2 children became the center of my world. For years, I picked them up from school when Daniel and Celeste worked late. I kept snacks ready, helped with homework, watched their soccer games in the rain. On weekends, they'd stay over at my place, turning the living room into a fort city. Harper loved helping me bake, Wyatt would curl up in the armchair while I read aloud from the old Hardy Boys books. Those were the happiest years of my life. And then, little things started to change. The first time Celeste hinted I might be slipping, we were in my kitchen. Harper had just turned 8. I forgot for a second whether she wanted strawberry or grape jelly on her sandwich. Celeste laughed lightly. "It's okay, Mom. We all forget things at your age." Seemed harmless. But after that, she'd slip similar comments into conversations with Daniel, always within earshot. She mixed up the kids' practice times again. "I think she's just tired." First I brushed it off. But then came the missed visits. "I'm sorry, Mom, the kids are busy this weekend," Daniel would say. Or, "Celeste says they have too much homework." But I'd see photos online of them at the park, at the movies, at parties. I tried to speak to Celeste directly once, ask if something was wrong. She smiled that perfect smile and said, "No, of course not. I just think it's better for them to have consistency at home. You know how kids are." That word, consistency, sounded like a door locking. Over time, my visits dwindled from every week to once a month to not at all. When I called, the kids were always busy. Birthdays became cards mailed instead of candles blown out together. I started noticing Daniel was quieter with me, distracted when we talked like he was somewhere else. The day I realized I'd been cut out was a Tuesday in late autumn. I drove to the school to surprise the kids and watch Wyatt's basketball practice. As I walked up to the doors, I saw Celeste's SUV parked out front. She was talking to another mother, her voice low but clear. "She passed away last winter," she said. "It's been hard for the kids, but they're doing okay now." Froze. My heart thudded in my ears. The other woman murmured something sympathetic, and Celeste nodded, her face arranged into the perfect picture of gentle sorrow. I wanted to march up to her, shout that I was standing right there, but I didn't. I stood in the cold until she drove away. I never told Daniel I'd hurt her. Maybe I was afraid he already believed it. Maybe I was afraid he wouldn't care. That winter was the loneliest of my life. Snow piled against the porch. I stopped baking because there was no one to eat what I made. The house felt like it had shrunk, pressing in on me. I kept a photo of Wyatt and Harper on the kitchen table just so I'd have someone to look at over breakfast. But here's the thing about grief when the person is still alive. You can't bury it and move on. It festers. By the time spring came, I'd stopped hoping they'd call. I told myself I was too old to fight for a place in someone's life if they didn't want me there. But inside I was keeping track, writing down the dates of missed birthdays, the lies I overheard, the moments I wanted to remember if I ever had to tell my side. Then one day, a friend from church mentioned the twins' graduation date. "Big night for your family," she said. I just nodded. But when I got home, I sat in my recliner for hours, staring at the wall. I decided I was going. I didn't know what I'd say. I didn't even know if they'd believe me. But I couldn't let them walk across that stage thinking I was dead. So, I pulled out the dress I'd worn to Harper's 5th birthday, pressed it and set it aside. I polished my cane, laid out my shoes. I went to bed that night with my heart pounding like I had somewhere important to be in the morning. And when the day came, I walked into that auditorium with my head high, keeping to the back so I could see everything without being seen. At least not yet. From my spot in the shadows, I spotted Celeste before she spotted me. When her eyes finally landed on mine, I saw it, the exact second her lie began to unravel. If you're feeling this moment with me like this video, share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe to the channel. The principal's voice echoed through the auditorium, calling the graduates' names in neat alphabetical order. The crowd clapped and cheered after each one, the sound bouncing off the high ceilings. But from my place in the shadows, all I could hear was my own heartbeat. I had been still for so long, years of shrinking myself down, staying quiet, letting Celeste decide when I was allowed to see my own grandchildren. Now every muscle in my body hummed with a strange, sharp energy. I wasn't afraid. Not anymore. And then, Wyatt's name. The applause swelled. He walked across the stage, his robe swishing at his ankles, tassel swinging as he reached out to shake the principal's hand. My chest tightened. He looked so much like Daniel at that age. Then came Harper. Her curls tumbled over her shoulders, her smile bright as she accepted her diploma. My eyes stung, but I blinked hard, refusing to cry. They turned toward the audience, scanning the crowd, and that's when Harper's gaze brushed past me, faltered and came back. She froze. Her smile faltered just slightly, just long enough for me to know she saw me. Wyatt followed her line of sight. His brow furrowed, eyes narrowing, lips parting as if to speak. And that's when Celeste noticed. She was seated at the end of the front row, right where every camera would catch her smiling face. But now her smile didn't reach her eyes. She turned her head, found me, and the color drained from her cheeks. Her hand twitched on the edge of her seat, gripping the fabric like she could anchor herself to it. For a moment, it was just the two of us, locked in a silent stare across the expanse of the auditorium. Then I started walking. My cane tapped against the polished floor, steady, deliberate, each step louder than it should have been. A few heads turned. The sound of my shoes, low heels, the kind I'd worn to church for years, joined the rhythm. People in the aisle seats moved their knees aside to let me pass, some glancing at me curiously, as if trying to remember if they'd seen my face in the obituaries. Celeste's lips moved. Maybe my name, maybe a curse, but I didn't slow down. I kept my gaze forward toward the stage where Wyatt and Harper stood, frozen between the ceremony and something they couldn't yet name. Daniel turned halfway in his seat, following Celeste's look. When he saw me, he blinked hard like he didn't trust what he was seeing. His mouth opened, but I beat him to it. "Hello, Daniel," I said as I reached the front row. My voice wasn't loud, but in the quiet pause between names, it carried. He stood slowly, glancing between me and Celeste. "Mom." "But..." "Yes," I cut in. "But nothing." I looked past him, up at the stage. "I came to see my grandchildren graduate." The principal's voice wavered for a moment before continuing down the list of names. I turned back toward the stage. "Wyatt. Harper. You've both grown so much." Harper's eyes were wide, her hands gripping the diploma case like it might disappear. Wyatt's expression shifted from shock to something else. Confusion, yes, but also anger. Celeste stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. "This isn't the time or the place," she hissed. "You have no right." "No right," I repeated, my voice sharper now. "You told them I was dead, Celeste. You told them I passed away last winter. Do you know what it's like to be buried alive by your own family?" The nearest rows went quiet. The sound of clapping for the next graduate faded into murmurs. Daniel's face went pale. "She what?" "Oh, don't act surprised," I said, my eyes flicking to him. "If you didn't know, it's because you didn't care enough to find out." Celeste's eyes darted around, scanning the crowd, searching for support, but she found none. I took another step forward, closer to the stage. "I stayed away for years because I thought that's what you all wanted. But tonight, I wanted you both to see me alive, standing here, proud of you, no matter what lies you've been told." Harper's lips trembled. Wyatt's jaw clenched. Celeste reached for Daniel's arm. "We should go." "No," I said firmly, surprising even myself with the steel in my voice. "We're not going anywhere. We're going to finish this ceremony. Then my grandchildren are going to decide for themselves who I am in their lives. Not you." And with that, I turned and stepped to the side of the aisle, leaning on my cane, eyes fixed on the stage as the ceremony continued. But I knew the night wasn't over. Not by a long shot. When the last name was called and the caps went into the air, that's when the real confrontation would begin. If you're following this moment, hit like, share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe to the channel. The ceremony ended in a flurry of cheers and camera flashes. Blue and gold caps sailed into the air, raining down like confetti. Parents surged toward the stage, calling out names, arms outstretched for hugs. I stayed where I was, letting the tide of people rush past. I wasn't here to fight through the crowd. I was here to be seen by Wyatt, by Harper, by Daniel, by Celeste. Wyatt spotted me first. He hesitated, glancing over his shoulder as if to check whether it was allowed, then started toward me. Harper followed, her eyes darting between me and her mother, who lingered a few steps back with her jaw clenched tight. They stopped a few feet away, their expressions wary, like I might vanish if they got too close. I thought. Harper began, her voice cracking. I know, I said softly. You thought I was gone. Mom told us. Wyatt started. I know what she told you, I said, my voice firm but not unkind. And I can't change the years I've missed. But I can tell you this. Every single day I've loved you. I never left you. I never stopped being your grandmother. Wyatt's mouth tightened. Harper's eyes glistened. Behind them, Daniel finally approached, his face pale, his gaze flicking between me and Celeste like he was standing on a fault line about to split open. Mom, he said quietly, why didn't you tell me? I did tell you, Celeste cut in sharply. I told you she wasn't well, that it was better for the kids not to. Not to what? I interrupted. Not to know I was alive. Not to hear my side. Not to have one more holiday, one more birthday with the woman who raised their father. The crowd noise faded in my ears. I could see people slowing as they passed, catching pieces of the conversation, glancing at us with curious eyes. Celeste's cheeks flushed. You're twisting. No, I said, my voice steady. I'm untwisting. You've tied this family into knots for years, Celeste. And I let you. I thought keeping quiet would keep the peace. But all it did was give you the room to erase me. I reached into my bag and pulled out a small, worn photo album, the one I'd been saving for this moment. I opened it to a picture of Wyatt as a toddler, frosting smeared across his cheeks, sitting on my kitchen counter while I baked his birthday cake. I turned the page to Harper at 6, wearing an apron 3 sizes too big, stirring brownie batter with both hands. Every page in here is a day I was part of your lives, I said to the twins. You can believe the woman who said I died, or you can believe the woman in these pictures. That choice is yours. Wyatt reached for the album. Harper leaned in, her fingers brushing the page. Daniel swallowed hard. Mom, I didn't know it was like this. I should have. You should have asked, I said gently. That's all you ever had to do. Just ask. For a long moment no one moved. Then Wyatt looked up at me and said, Can we come see you? Like soon. My throat tightened. My door is always open. Celeste's lips pressed into a thin line. She turned to Daniel, her voice low and sharp. Are you really going to let her? I'm going to let them decide, Daniel said. Celeste's eyes flashed, but she didn't say another word. She walked away, her heels clicking against the floor like a retreating drumbeat. The twins didn't follow her. They stayed with me, flipping through the album, pointing at pictures, asking questions. People walked by, smiling, congratulating them. But the 3 of us stayed in our little circle, the rest of the world fading away. And in that moment, I didn't feel like I'd won anything. I just felt whole again. The damage Celeste had done couldn't be erased in a night. There would be more conversations, more trust to rebuild, more proof that I was here to stay. But the wall between us had cracked, and that was enough to let the light through. As we walked toward the exit, Harper slipped her hand into mine. Wyatt walked on my other side, the photo album under his arm. Celeste stood outside in the parking lot, her arms folded, watching us. I met her gaze one last time, not with anger, but with a quiet certainty. She could lie about me all she wanted. She could twist stories, rewrite history. But the truth was standing right here, walking out of that building with my hand in my granddaughter's, my grandson at my side. And that truth didn't need me to shout to be heard. Just needed me to be here. Live. If this ending gave you chills like this video, leave a comment about what you'd do in Marcella's place. And subscribe for more powerful emotional stories like this one.